All right. So you know that the pumpkins are naturally spherical, and so that's how we're going to start. And we don't need to make a big, gigantic pumpkin on our paper. That's just going to use way too much color. We're going to probably do a medium-sized one. We don't want a real small one either. We're going to do a medium-sized one and just kind of create this large oval. That's about 2 inches from the top, 2 inches from the bottom, and 3 inches from either side. Just estimate. You don't have to do any measuring. And you can do this right along with me. So it's a large egg shape at this point. Next thing we're going to do is a base of the stem, and just go to the center top of your pumpkin and create a V. Create a wide V, and that's going to be the base of your pumpkin. Everything else kind of originates from the stem, so it's important that we place that first. Once that V is there, it's just like a tree. The stem is wide at the bottom and then narrow at the top with a slight bend to it. Kind of cuts off where they cut it at the vine, like so. So it's just this weird tree trunk type of shape, and the base of it is a small V. If you look at the example on the assignment tab, it has 4 of those bulbous sections in front and then 2 or 3 in back, and all of them originate again from the stem. So instead of going straight down, we're going to go from the stem and curve outwards just a little bit. And then we're going to go to the bottom of our sphere, and then back up. So it's like a big teardrop shape. Again, starting from the stem, curving down and away, and then curving back up, and then again attaching at the stem. So that's that first section. And the first 2 in the front are going to be the biggest, and then as it goes away from us, they'll get a little bit smaller. So we're going to start with our second section, again from the stem, work our way down. Still using a 2B pencil, okay, still holding it kind of halfway back. That's to not apply too much pressure. But now you have this heart shape, upside down heart shape, okay, again originating from the stem. And so these are our first 2 sections. We have a third section, actually going to go up a little higher than that. Starting from the stem, go up, go to the outside of your sphere, down, and then don't forget that little bump down at the bottom. Makes it look more like a pumpkin. And then do the same thing from the other side. So right now you should have 2 main ones in the front and then 2 smaller ones on either side. Again, everything originating from the stem, and everything kind of has a bump at the bottom. We're going to see portions of a couple more in the back. So again, starting from the stem, but don't go all the way down. You're going to stop because it's overlapping by the side of it. And then again here. And you should have a pretty decent pumpkin by that point. I'll give you a minute to get that done, and then we will move on. If you have any stray pencil lines, now would be a time to kind of clean them up. They don't have to be perfect because we're going to go ahead and lay ink right over the top for our next step. But the pencil sketch is essential. If the pencil sketch isn't right, take the time that you need to get it right. Because once you ink it, then it's set in stone, as it were. All right, so we can set our pencil aside. Okay, you should have your set of multi-liners. They each have a different tip. Okay, and that tip is dictated by a number. So 0.05, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, 0.8. I'm going to stick with the 0.5 and 0.8. They are the thickest. And we'll once again start at the stem. And we're just outlining what we've already done. So if all the pencil lines are where we want them, we're just tracing over exactly what we've already done. And again, not holding real close to it, maybe holding back just a little bit. Now, the stem is, a dried vine, so it's kind of feels like wood. It's the handle of the top of the jack-o'-lantern that we do at Halloween, and it has some texture to it. Okay, it's rough to the touch, and so we're just going to create some broken lines. To show said texture. Okay, not too bad. So the next part of it is a little bit more, I guess you would say, intimidating, because you have to just trust yourself. You got to start in one area and just follow the line down. If you go off the line slightly, it's okay. Those pencil lines will be erased ultimately anyway. So I'm still working on my 0.5 pen. And I'm going to start at the top, and it's just one line. It's just one line. I'm not trying to sketch it in. I'm just putting my pen down, following the line as best I can. And then I'll stop at the bottom, and I'll come at it from the other side. Because I'm right-handed, I'll just turn the page around. And there you go. And then you can do that for all the lines on your pumpkin. And you can go left or right, it doesn't matter at this point. So you just take it and you commit. Follow the pencil lines as closely as you can. Not super fast and not super slow either. And then match up the line together so it seems seamless, more or less. No pumpkins are perfect, and no two pumpkins are alike. So if yours is a little off or a little deformed, that's okay. It probably looks more natural. right, so I've outlined everything. Okay, there's a couple other things that we're going to do as far as the inking process is concerned. We're going to give a little weight and a little shadow to the bottom, and then a little texture along the sides. And so by weight, if you use one pen and one thickness of pen for everything, your drawing is going to look a little boring. So you want to add some line, what's called line integrity, which has to do with the thickness, the differing thickness of the line in certain places. So you're just going to kind of, I'm moving on to my 0.8, and I'm just adding a little bit of thickness to this line down at the bottom where the shadow will be. I'm going to do that in all of the separating points. All of these shadows are on the pumpkin itself. I'm not putting anything underneath it just yet. Sure, just gives it a little bit of weight down there, which is important. Okay, so just that little bit makes a big difference as far as the weight and feel of our pumpkin. We're going to add a little texture, a few texture lines. We can go back to the 0.5, or we could even go lower, say a 0.2, which is a thinner tip, and just add a few texture lines. And again, these are broken lines. In some areas that are close to the edge. I'm not going too much in the middle. They're not dashes, they're just random broken lines. Sometimes they're straight, sometimes they're a little squiggly. Just to add a little interest. I wouldn't outline every one, just kind of keep it in little spaces. All right. And then the inking stage should be complete. I'm always a little paranoid about the next step because I'm used to the old India ink that we used to dip our pens into, and that remained wet for a while. This stuff dries pretty fast. But I just naturally always kind of take a moment to let it dry perfectly, because I'm going to erase all my pencil lines next. And you grab your kneadable eraser and just pinch it down, and then you just rub it right over the top, and any stray pencil lines that you had from your initial sketch will be gone. Okay, and then you're left with an inked pumpkin. I'm going to give you a moment to catch up and finish that, and I'm going to talk about color before we actually start to color, so that you have an idea of what you're working with. Okay, so as I said, some of you are limited in your palette due to the size of the pack of markers that you got. Okay, if you have 12, you're limited. If you have 24, you have a few more choices. I have a pretty big assortment, so I have some choices. And these are called color swatches, and it's very, very important to do the color swatches on paper, because they give you the color representation on the cap, but very rarely does the color representation on the cap absolutely match the color representation on the paper. Okay, so it goes on wet, so it goes on dark, and then within about 30 seconds it dries and will dry lighter. Okay, so there's a little bit of a difference. I also write down the name and the serial number next to the swatch, because if I don't write down the name, I won't remember what's what. Okay, and I'm not using all of these, but I've experimented with a few, and I've chosen about 5 that I'm going to use for this process. Okay. So once again, you start with the lightest ones and then work your way darker. But the color swatch part is very, very important. Okay, having a paper underneath is very, very important. You can see here where I kind of got on my desk yesterday because I forgot to put my papers underneath. And so you kind of just choose your values, lay them to the side a little bit, and then we will begin to our coloring process. We won't finish it today, but we'll give it a good start. All right, so it doesn't matter where you start. You can choose whatever section you want and then work from there. We'll probably start right here in this second section. I'm going to start with the light orange. And it has a chisel tip. This is not a brush tip. Okay, I got a chisel tip on this side. It's fairly wide. And I'm just going to work in this section. I may add a little yellow. Actually, this is called honey. And I'm going to put this for some of my highlight area. Still working light to dark. And then when you lay colors on top of the other, it blends and will give you a completely different color. But kind of work one direction. Work quickly enough to where the colors work together, the blend takes place. I'm going to go a little bit darker. This is called caramel. Remember, we're trying to go light to dark. And the light source is coming from on top, so it's going to be a little bit darker underneath. This is a little light caramel. Probably not dark enough. So I'm going to leave that one alone. And this one does have a brush tip. And anytime you have that harsh color between values, you can go back with the color you've already used and work that transition area so you can try to get a better blend. This is a light walnut. So by now you've added quite a few layers, and you can see it bleeds through the paper underneath. So it's very essential that you have something underneath there. This is a good transition color. This is called Sanguine. Again, you have to work with what you have. But what I want you to avoid doing is just going with, say, orange, coloring it orange and saying, okay, I'm done. That's not blending. You're not going to be able to achieve value that way. If you lay yellow underneath and then your orange on top, you're going to get a different value. If you add red underneath and add orange on top, or orange under the red, you're going to get a different value. Adding a little bit of brown, it's going to start to help get that glow. Okay, and that's kind of the transition we want, where you go from dark to light. And then you begin the process all over again in the next section. And it helps if you kind of remember how you started. Sometimes I forget. If you find a recipe that works, you can write it down in the order that you did it, or you can just go for it. So this is a practice piece. This is worth 10 points. You do not have to finish everything, the whole pumpkin, by next class. We're going to continue to work on it, review some things next class as well. And due date will be Sunday at midnight.